Hello, and thank you for joining us on our webinar today around the 8 critical IT considerations for driving business continuity. This is Chris Berge, Vice President of Corporate Development at Ooma, and I'm joined today by Zayas Caravella, who's the Principal Analyst at ZK Research. We hope that you'll find this webinar informational, and we encourage you to submit questions that can later be answered. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Zayas.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to join us in this webinar. Obviously, a lot's changed in the world, and so we think that the information we're going to share with you in this webinar is very timely, and hopefully it can help you with your business continuity planning. Now, just a quick intro on myself. Yeah, before I get into the content, I just wanted to give a bit of background on myself. I'm Zayas Caravella. I've been an industry analyst for a long time, about 20 years. I was the Chief Research Officer at Yankee Group for 11 years or so, and now I've been on my own for about 10 years. Prior to that, though, I was actually at a VAR. I was at a number of corporate IT roles, including as a stint as a CIO. And I don't ever remember any time in my career a time quite like this for IT people. So this is, I think it's an incredibly important discussion that we're having, and I hope you guys take something away from this. And if you want to know more, you can see I write for all the major publications as well. I have some of them listed down below here. So in addition to this webinar, you can also look up some of my content. One of the biggest changes in the industry now is the fact that the entire definition of business continuity has changed because of COVID-19. As I mentioned before, I've been in corporate IT. In fact, in a couple of the firms I was at, I was part of the business continuity plan. And back then, the focus of business continuity was about running the organization for a predetermined period of time with the smallest set of resources as possible. So, for example, I was in charge of the equity division at a major financial services firm, and we had about 120 equity traders, and we would think that, well, could we get away with running instead of 120? Could we have 50? Instead of using the 50 or so applications they had, could we use 10 or 20 of them? And so, again, the focus was very data center focused, and it was maintaining minimal operations for a predetermined period of time. Today, because of COVID and everybody working from home, the definition of business continuity is now, can I run the entire organization for as long a period as possible, for an indefinite period, with my full complement of staff? And so the goal for CIOs today is to maintain employee productivity, to maintain that high level of customer experience, to not disrupt their supply chain. So you can see the differences here. It's all business operations for an indefinite period of time with full staff. And the last piece of this is the time to recover. We used to give ourselves days, sometimes weeks to do it. Now it has to be immediate. You can't afford any downtime, because downtime means lost business, it means lost customers, and it could mean going out of business. So this rethinking of business continuity is incredibly important, and so keep this in mind as we go through the presentation. Instead, solving the business continuity challenge is really up to corporate IT. And when I interview CIOs and IT leaders about what their goals are for the company, the top goal, of course, is ensuring that your employees have no productivity issues, that they're as productive before or after as they were before. The second one is maintaining the absolute highest level of customer service. And so, again, from a customer perspective, the goal would be, will the customer not notice any difference before and after? In fact, in this era right now that we're in, where customers are a bit nervous, you would almost want to provide better customer service, right? So that means your employees need to have faster access to information than they ever did before. Other priorities tend to revolve around supply chain optimization, things like that. But there's a lot of different CIO priorities, and so or business priorities, and they're looking for the IT department to help them solve those challenges. And so the business continuity challenge is technology-led. Right, there's no doubt today that technology is going to help us through this time period. In fact, I would go as far as say it's network-led. If you look at a lot of the tools and things that we have, cloud mobility and things, network kind of ties that together, right? So I think that's very important. It's non-disruptive to the workforce as well. So we can't, I've always said with corporate IT initiatives that one of the goals should be, obviously, to save money. Another goal is to increase productivity, but the third goal of that is to never have the solution be more complicated than the original problem. And that's not always the case with corporate initiatives. And so in this case, we're going to shift our workforce to home, if we're going to do things differently, it can't be disruptive for the workforce, because if it's disruptive to the workforce, we have unhappy workers. If we don't have happy workers, then we have unhappy customers, right? So it goes down that chain, and so it has to be non-disruptive. We need to have fast access to all the applications required, so it can't be a thing where there's lots and lots of work, and a big part of that is minimizing the use of VPNs. And so if I have to, I've talked to a number of organizations about how they got their workforce to be remote, and a lot of it's the expanding the use of traditional VPN technology, but that's expensive. It's time-consuming. Often you don't have the right licenses. You don't have the right infrastructure. In fact, one organization told me that for every employee they had to put on a VPN, it took about 30 minutes of IT time to get them set up and running and trained, and then there's always ongoing support issues and things. And so that, you can think of it in a 10,000-person company, even a 1,000-person company. At 30 minutes, that's, a 1,000-person company would be 30,000 minutes, right? That's a lot of time spent by corporate IT doing that. A multi-location businesses have more considerations, obviously, than single location. You have to worry about how to tie the people together. You have different apps in the different locations. But ostensibly, I guess every business now is multi-location because everybody is their own location. And then the service delivery must remain absolutely as high as it did before. And so these are all really interesting aspects for corporate IT. But make no mistake, right? If we're going to get through this pandemic, if businesses are going to survive, it's because the technology group, the IT department, led us through this transition. Planning your business continuity strategy, there's 8 things that I want you to consider, and I've got them listed out here, and I'm going to go into depth in each one, but I'll just go through them quickly. You want to think about shifting your apps to the cloud, right? Obviously, cloud's faster access, and I'll talk about that in depth. You want to implement the use of video. So video has seen just an absolute explosion in use, and I think that'll continue. You want to use cloud-based voice to connect workers at home, and I'll talk about why that's beneficial. We want to collaborate using team messaging, and that's something that's relatively new. There's a lot of groups, IT departments and PR teams and marketing departments, things that have embraced that, but I'll explain why everybody should. We want to evolve the network to a software-defined WAN, and that's something that's been long overdue, and I'll talk about that. We want to architect the network for direct access to cloud, and so that's part of SD-WAN, but it's something that we could have done before, but it was very complicated. We want to use multi-factor authentication for security, and lastly, we want to have some end-to-end visibility and analytics. And so this is sort of the roadmap I laid out, and I'll go into each one of these now. So the first one, your applications to the cloud. And I've got a slide on each one of these, and so hopefully you'll be able to follow along, and if not, you've got the slides to review. The shifting apps to the cloud is important. The SaaS-based apps become ubiquitously available from any location without VPNs. And so the traditional way of accessing applications is my apps live in the data center, they live in a branch, they live on my corporate premise, and then I have to have my a VPN client running on my local laptop or something like that to be able to access the apps. Now, that can work, but one of the challenges with that is, of course, I have to have the VPN client running on it. So if I don't have the VPN client, and so let's say I've got 2 computers at home, then I can access it from one but not the other, right? And so that gets kind of complicated. Also, networks, especially in-home Wi-Fi, can be notoriously flaky. So sometimes these VPN clients can drop. Not all are persistent and won't auto-reconnect, and so sometimes users have troubles understanding why things dropped. And remember, in this era, it's easy for people like Chris, who's joining me on this call, and myself to work from home because we probably do it a lot. But about 3/4 of the workforce out there have never really ever worked from home consistently. There's some that have never worked from home, right? So asking them to do things over VPN is quite a different paradigm. Cloud apps are optimized for today's mobile-centric work in the world, and so if you've read anything I've written on any of the public sites, one of the consistent themes I've had is that mobile drives cloud and cloud drives mobile, and I think the two together work very well. And in fact, you can think of the cloud as being the right compute paradigm for this highly mobile world we're in. I think VPN or traditional apps was good for the portable workforce, and what I mean by that is we did work in the office, we picked it up, and we took it home, we took it to a laptop and things like that. into a hotel or whatever. But we were portable more so than mobile. Now we can be doing any task, anywhere, anytime, right? And that lends us more towards mobility, and cloud's a better option for that. There's a much faster deployment and low startup costs, and so unlike a traditional on-premise application where I got to go buy a bunch of servers and rack and stack them, and it can take me months sometimes to get deployed, with cloud apps, generally if I break out a credit card, I can have it up and running pretty quickly. Faster access to new features and innovation. And this is something that I think is often an undertold value prop of the cloud. I think when you think most of the cloud providers today have moved to the CI/CD model of continuous innovation and continuous delivery, and so as soon as the new features are made available in the cloud, they're made available to all the users. But now think of the traditional packaged applications where you get a service pack from your vendor. Well, you go through the months of testing. You might install it, you might not. And so sometimes, in fact, even with a lot of operating system upgrades and things, a lot of companies tend to skip a whole generation. And so now you're delaying the access to innovation. And lastly, you get built-in business continuity. So it doesn't matter if my work is in the office or my work is at home or my worker is on vacation. They have access to the same applications, the same look and feel by shifting apps to the cloud. And I think this is one of the most critical elements of business continuity is shifting your apps to the cloud. If you've been on the fence for it, hopefully that this will tip you over towards the cloud side. Number 2 is video conferencing, and I put for meetings, but really there's really very little difference today between a meeting and a call. I think you should use video for almost everything. Yeah, for large meetings, small meetings, ad hoc meetings, 2 people, 4 people, 100 people. Video is just a better meeting. And one of the things that I've from talking to companies about their business continuity plans, it's been a struggle, is employees have had a hard time maintaining social continuity because workplace, while we go there to work, it's a very social thing. And so video lets people collaborate better and connect better when they're not in the same location. You can maintain eye contact. You can build a lot of relationships. In fact, even before the pandemic happened, I remember talking to a financial services firm where one of the traders in the trading desk said they used to always get a lot of questions from their clients about when you're going to come visit, and they started talking over video, and now they don't get those questions because you feel like the person's visiting you every time you talk. So I understand there's a historical biasness against video. I think the video systems in the past weren't very good. They required lots and lots of time to set up. In fact, when I was in corporate IT, it would take probably an hour of IT time to get a video system rolled into a room, up and running, tested, and give us in the IT department confidence that when our executives used it, it would actually work. And so the systems have greatly evolved over the past 5 years. Ooma's got great video built into their product, and you can just click and join, right? So video is a great tool now. It's very easy to use. People tend to be more engaged. In fact, I've got some stats on the left-hand side. You can see your participants learn 200% more with video than with audio only. You absorb information 40% faster. You retain information, 38% more information than with audio only. It increased the power of persuasiveness by 43%. So if you're on the sales side or if you're trying to convince somebody to buy a product or something, it can help. And it can increase the impact of communication. So I think there's a lot of AI-based features that are coming down the road that almost make us look kind of like augmented reality, where we will see people's names and information, and we're still a couple of years away from that. But I think what's going to happen is video meetings will actually become better than in person because I'll have more information fed to me. It's kind of like the difference between watching football live in a stadium and watching NFL Red Zone. When I'm watching NFL Red Zone, I've got a lot of information being fed to me about the other games. When I'm in the stadium, really, I only see the field, right? And it's up to me to piece everything together. So I think right now it's important to build a video culture is video usage begets more video usage. And what I mean by that is that in organizations that I've talked to, when they start using video, the use of it goes way up within their organizations. But however, getting over the hurdle of starting to use it can be challenging. And so video does beget more video. And I think right now there's never been a better time to try and get that brought into the organization. But it really does need to start at the executive level. The third one is use cloud VoIP to connect workers at home. And so VoIP is interesting. It's been around a long time. And I think there's a lot of talk. Do we need handsets? Can we just use our mobile phones? For a lot of different reasons, companies want to keep their phones. They want to keep corporate phone numbers. You own the number where the employee doesn't. Some people prefer a traditional handset versus a soft phone. There's a whole bunch of different reasons. Not everybody's going to use a mobile device. Sometimes people want to use a traditional phone, and even with that, you can use it in conjunction with a smartphone. You can use it with a mobile client or whatever. Now, VoIP, one of the great aspects of VoIP is that it's voice over IP, and the IP part of that is the key, because with traditional telephony that's layer 2 based, it's very difficult to extend to a home worker. In fact, unless you're putting up some kind of bridge versus a VPN tunnel or some kind of dynamic connection, it's impossible to. I know I can do things like some of the legacy vendors have these forwarding plans and things like that, but they chew up a lot of trunk lines. They get very costly very quick. VoIP, however, works over the internet, and it works. You simply just plug it into the network, and it looks like a corporate phone. In fact, one of the great innovations that came with voice over IP is that you can do 4-digit dialing across your whole organization now. And so if you want to maintain that, you can just give people your corporate handsets, and it would look like a VoIP phone. And so it seamlessly transitions for workers. This is important for calls, contact center agents, customer service people, salespeople, that have that dedicated company number, and you want to maintain some sort of semblance of continuity for the workers. So voice over IP is ideally suited to do that. And again, if you're using one of the older traditional systems and you've been thinking about replacing it, I would use this pandemic as a way to do that. And so very easily, you can actually just connect into the cloud and use one of these voice over IP handsets. They're actually very good. And if you use a soft phone or a mobile client, again, it's going to connect exactly the same way. And for the inbound caller, it looks exactly the same. There's no difference in experience, and that's important from, like I said, from a customer service standpoint. The fourth piece of this is to use team messaging as a collaboration tool. So this is something that's been on the bubble now for a little while. There's a number of team messaging tools. In fact, almost every UC vendor has one now, and so this has been a great innovation for the collaboration space. It's used largely as a replacement for email, sometimes in conjunction with, but traditional email is inefficient. It's hard to use. It's organized chronologically, so if you were looking for some kind of content, you have to remember who sent it to you, when they sent it to you. You wind up doing a lot of weird searches. I have a hard time with email right now. I've got, I think, a quick check in my inbox here. I've got like 50,000 unread messages. So that doesn't happen so much with team messaging. With team messaging, think of it just as persistent chat where all my communications are organized by thread. Excuse me. And so if let's say Chris Berg and I were going to create a thread for this webinar, we would call it digital transformation webinar or business continuity webinar. We would create a thread for that, and then any content, any chats we have, any videos, anything we want to do, we would drop into that messaging room, if you want to call it that, or thread, and then everything would be organized by that. And then if I'm moving on to another project, I could have another thread for that. And so it's great for highly agile teams. It's great for disparate workers because you have some kind of recording of all the communications. If we're in, Chris and I are in different time zones. If I want to leave him a message and it's really late my time, I can put it in the thread. He can check it in the morning and respond when he wants to. And so it's not like email, which when you wake up in the morning, you have so many of them, you can't look at them and you lose a lot of things. And so it keeps projects and people together. The best way I've heard to describe what team messaging is if you think of a file as being a virtual copy of a piece of paper and the folders on your computer as a virtual replacement for your file folders, the team messaging is a virtual replacement for a room. And so everything I want to do on a certain project, I put in that room, and then I'm able to look it up whenever I want. And so these are now tightly integrated with other UC apps, very complementary to meetings. So I can start something in in these messaging sessions. I can click the call rather than I can click the video. But the big thing is it organizes information much better. So these highly agile teams out that are working from everywhere can have access to the right information when they need it. Number 5 is evolving the network to an SD-WAN. I think SD-WANs are interesting because they're relatively new, and they've been on a tear. I haven't seen a technology adopted this fast in a long time, and part of the reason is because the legacy WANs are, well, they're legacy. In fact, the architecture that most companies have built their WANs with was the same one that I used when I was in corporate IT, and that was pre-Y2K. So we're running our networks with an architecture and a network that was designed 30, 40 years ago, right? So we've modernized everything in the company. We modernized the way we store files, the way we communicate, the way we access information, but we haven't modernized the network. And so an SD-WAN is the modernization of that network, and it lets you do things like extend your network into people's homes, into backpacks, into cars, into anywhere an IoT device, right? So it brings a much greater level of agility to the network because it's based on software and not hardware, and that's hence the term software defined. It obviates the need for those expensive VPNs. And so instead of having to create VPN to VPN tunnels all over the place, I can use software clients to do that. It allows me to extend networks to the home, as I mentioned. It's got security built into it, and it's got pre-built application resiliency and performance. And so traditional WANs were based on a concept of what was known as active technology, or active passive, in which I would have two lanes created, two pipes, but only one can be active. And that's akin to having a road system built where I can only use one road at a time, and the only way traffic can go down the other road is if the primary road fails. And so what active SD-WANs are built on active, and so all my lanes are now open at the same time. And so I get much better resiliency, I get much better performance, but it is the right network to support a world that's largely moving to cloud. The next point I want to talk about is designing the network for a direct access to cloud. We've talked about cloud, we've talked about how important it is. And if you think of the way the traditional WAN was designed with that hub and spoke model, all your traffic would trombone. And what I mean by that is you'd have internet traffic come in through the data center. It would then go up the spoke, hence hub and spoke, to the branch office. The user would do some stuff. Then the traffic would travel back down the spoke, back out the hub. And that trombone effect was actually a very big waste of traffic. And you would wind up sending data over your WAN a couple of times, and so you'd have to size your pipes a lot bigger. Plus those extra hops it would take adds to latency, adds to jitter, adds to delays, and so with real-time apps like voice and video, that actually makes a big difference. And in the world of math, we always say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, what direct access to cloud does from the branch is it gives you that straight line. So instead of the user having to connect through that data center, they just access the cloud directly. And that's actually even a bigger deal from home, because from a home worker, they'd have to go to the branch, the VPN to the branch, the data center, then back out, and that whole path becomes longer. When you there's always been a desire to do this, and the reason we haven't done it in the past is because it was much more complicated. This whole aspect of split tunnels actually creates multiple paths into a company and things like that, and that was very difficult to secure. But today, because of SD-WANs and because of other innovations, that has become easier to be able to do split tunnels. And this is a very, very important factor for video in particular. So it's, as I point out here, it's critical for cloud video. Obviously, there's been an explosion of cloud video. So if you're going to be doing that, you need to architect your network for cloud and for video, and creating direct access to cloud is the best way to do that. Number 7 is deploying multi-factor authentication. This is something that people hate, frankly. When you think of old-school multi-factor authentication, it was reliant on RSA tokens and things like that, and it seemed like whenever I needed mine, I didn't have it, so I could never access the apps I wanted, and so we gave up. Right now that we're moving everybody to work from home, we're moving everybody to use cloud-based apps, what's happening is that the SaaS apps are becoming a top attack point for threat actors, and one of the sad realities of the world is users don't like passwords, and so if I've got 10 different cloud apps, I'm going to use the same username and password for all 10. Once I get hacked into one, the hacker can actually hack into all of them. And I'm pretty good friends with one of the more famous penetration testers. He's a well-known security activist. Has actually been arrested for trying to hack the FBI, got out of jail, and now he works doing good. But he said that the number one way he penetrates companies is through SaaS apps. And so what multi-factor authentication does is it lets you use a secondary method of authentication. And the newer ones use AI and mobile devices to supply access. So even if you had my password, some of the newer ones use things like keyboard cadence, right? And so the way I type is different than the way Chris Berge types. It's the way you listen on the phone types. And so AI can actually determine whether it's me or not. And so to me, this is a must-have for remote workers. There's a whole bunch of vendors that offer it, but the key is through the use of AI, MFA today is much different than it was in the past. And I think now that we're moving into this largely mobile workforce, it's time to take another look at these. Number 8 is end-to-end visibility and analytics, and I can't express enough how important this is. Whether it's for your collaboration tools, your video, your general network traffic, there's an axiom in networking that states you can't manage what you can't see. And so user experience relies on having a good quality experience from the cloud all the way to the user's hand, right? So if I'm sitting on my laptop, I'm accessing the application on 24. If there's a performance problem, it's going to be somewhere between my computer and their cloud. The question is where, right? And so in the old IT world where everything was on-prem, troubleshooting was difficult, but at least I owned all the infrastructure, and it made troubleshooting difficult but not impossible. Today, I think with trying to use like old school tools like packet capture and things like that are very difficult, if not impossible. I think end-to-end visibility and network traffic, this is where I would rely on a partner like an Ooma to be able to provide that for at least the tools they provide. I think the analytic tools can greatly shorten troubleshooting time. I think VoIP and video require some kind of pervasive monitoring in order to understand where there's problems, when there's problems. In fact, I think down the road, once we start to infuse AI into the analytics, we'll be able to predict those problems. For example, like VoIP has this thing called MOS scoring, which stands for mean opinion score, which actually is an indicator of how good a voice call is. And so 5 is the best you can have, and so let's say, and 4 is business grade. So let's say over 3 consecutive quarters, I notice my MOS score go from 4.6 to 4.5 to 4.4. Well, I can predict that in 3 more quarters it's going to drop below business quality. So I can go ahead then and fix the problem before it becomes user impacting. Now, wouldn't that be nice, right? From an IT perspective, being able to fix problems because they're user impacting. And so, but that can only be done with end-to-end visibility in analytics. So make sure you have that in place. Now, I gave you the 8 previous IT considerations that we told you we'd give you in this webinar, but I'm going to give you a bonus one, and that is to minimize the use of VPNs. And the reason I kind of kept this to the end is because it's important for all the things that we did in the past. Certainly the simplest path to having everybody work from home and for business continuity, conceptually anyways, is to expand the use of VPNs. Companies already have VPN infrastructure in place, so why not just beef it up and use it? Now, I'm telling you that it should really be the exception, not the norm for VPNs. Most companies have purchased, indeed, some VPN licenses, but they've only provisioned it for about 10 to 15% of the workforce because not everybody works from home. So if I want to scale that out to all my employees, no, I've got to buy many more software licenses. So if I had, let's say I had a 1,000-person company, if I had 10% of my employees on VPN, I'd have 100 concurrent licenses. Now I need 1,000 concurrent licenses. So what's the cost, right? That's a 10x improvement in cost. Also, the VPN licenses, the clients, they connect into something called a VPN concentrator or a firewall or a router. Those boxes are very, very expensive, 6 figures in some case. And so if I'm going to scale up the number of VPN clients, these are very processor-intensive tasks. They're going to connect into I'm going to need a much bigger firewall or VPN concentrator to connect that into, and that's going to drive up the cost. Now, those are capital costs and are software costs, so maybe you want to spend that. Now, there's also a user training, and this is where costs can get out of control. Remember, most workers that use VPNs today are pretty technically savvy and understand how to do it. A lot of the people working from home today have never, ever worked from home. And so they require an extensive amount of training to help them get the VPN set up, get it configured right, understand that VPNs are flaky. They go down sometimes. How do you relaunch it? One company I talked to said that the average amount of time it takes an IT person just to get the user set up is about 30 minutes. So you can imagine a 1,000-person company. Now you got to come up with 30,000 minutes of IT time to be able to do this. So while VPNs may seem like the fastest path to business continuity, they're complicated, they're expensive, and frankly, they're well past their prime. This is technology developed 30, 40 years ago, and so if you can minimize the use of it and use it only for exceptions, that's the best thing to do because there are better ways to do it today. I just want to say in summary, and I'll be back for some Q&A later, The post-COVID business is never going to operate the same. I think a lot of the things we're doing today, we will keep in place. I've talked to HR managers that want to continue to use, video and things for interviewing, for onboarding employees. We'll see people come back in teams, and so there's not going to be just a day 3 months from now where everybody's back in the office. It's going to be phased in, and so this business continuity strategy you're putting in today is something that you're going to have to keep in place probably for a couple of years, right? And so you're going to be using it all day, every day. And so the legacy technology we use weren't really designed for agile. They weren't really designed for distributed companies. And I want you to keep one thing in mind, right, that businesses are becoming more dynamic and more distributed. And everything you do from an IT perspective should be to facilitate your company becoming increasingly agile, increasingly dynamic, and increasingly distributed. If you're not doing that, you're actually going backwards, okay? So that's the last thought I'll leave you with. Here's my contact info. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Here's my contact info, and here's my Twitter handle. And if you want to find out more about the stuff I cover, just simply follow me on Twitter, and you'll get a lot of good info on the tech industry, COVID-19, Star Trek, and some of my other interests. So to pick it up from here, I'll be back later for some Q&A, but I'm going to turn it over to Chris Berge from Ooma, who will walk you through his part of the presentation. Chris?
Perfect. Thanks, Zayas. Hopefully you found that insightful and helpful. There were some great tips in there from Zayas on different considerations that you need to take around all of those areas, and some really good nuggets around lessons learned from somebody that's been around the industry for a very, very long time. I'd like to spend a little bit of time giving you some context on who Ooma is in case you have not heard of us before. Most folks, if they recognize the name Ooma, will know us from our long-standing heritage in the residential VoIP space. Ooma has actually been at VoIP since 2004, so 16 years now. And we learned a lot of lessons, much to the point that Zayas made, around quality over internet connections. And if you can imagine back 10 years ago, the quality of internet connections were nowhere near the degree that they are today. And so Ooma had to develop a lot of proprietary technology around how we addressed connections that are not in an ideal state, and providing a rich, meaningful voice connection that you can understand that has the same degree of quality as all of us have been accustomed to using the traditional wireline network. We actually have over 1 million users on our core platform and another 1 million on a mobile platform, so 2 million users. The scale of what Ooma does is pretty phenomenal and flies under the radar, again, for most folks. But most interesting has been our foray into the business space, where we've actually had growth that's consistently near 50% quarter after quarter the previous 5 quarters in a row. So if you think about where Ooma has come from with that residential heritage, I find that it gives us a really good insight into how people like to operate with technology. If you think of that consumer home environment and the level of sophistication that most folks have around technology, you have to make solutions that are really quite simple for them to take advantage of. And that's an important part of kind of our core vision and how we approach things as a company. We want to transform sophisticated technology into elegant, simple communication solutions that are accessible to everybody. If you think about the portfolio that Ooma has, again, we're most well known for our heritage in residential space, but we've built out a very, very interesting and verbose portfolio on the business side of the house. We made our first step into cloud communications for businesses about 7.5 years ago with our solution called Ooma Office. And over time, we've built out the capabilities of this platform to address much larger businesses. And fundamentally what that results in is the ability for Ooma as a business to address the needs of the small florist shop down the street to a doctor's office or an attorney's office that may have dozens and dozens of folks that are in an environment, all the way up to the largest scale enterprise customers that have very robust needs and needs for flexibility as well in the way that they design their systems. And the intent that we took with this is to apply that same ethos we've had around simplicity across the entire product line and right-size it to the customer segment or the size of business that you have. So if you are much simpler in your needs around communications and you're kind of oriented on making and receiving phone calls via a variety of devices, Ooma Office is a wonderful fit for that type of customer environment. To large organizations that want to integrate into specific business workflow processes that they have or custom create applications, we can unlock all of that flexibility with our Ooma Enterprise solution. And most importantly, we've done this across many, many organizations here in the US and in Canada. We actually have tens and tens of thousands of different customers, and they span from small individual companies to retail type chains like Wendy's, for instance, that a franchise owner may have hundreds of Wendy's locations, to very large enterprise customers with brand names that you would recognize like Slack, for instance, or Coldwell Banker, or Zappos or WastePro. We really have a solution that is suited to just about any business out there, depending on what your needs are, and we can help walk you through what is the best way to approach the problem that you're trying to solve in your business today. Ooma Office is our platform that solves for the core needs, kind of the main businesses that exist out in the US today. We call them Main Street businesses. It, of course, can solve for much larger organizations as well, but we really wanted to create a solution that is accessible and cloud delivered to the typical business owner out in the United States or in Canada today. Fundamentally, what we've designed leverages a lot of that heritage from what Ooma has done in the residential voice space. We recognize that the needs of businesses are obviously very different, but it parallels many things that a consumer or somebody in a residential setting would need. And with that, we built a solution that is cloud delivered, focused on communications for business customers, and providing a highly flexible environment so they can adapt to the way that that business needs to operate. We designed this with the features that really take the small business customer into account. What matters the most for you as a business and how you communicate with your employees, how you communicate with your customers. And we recognize that environments are different at customers as well. So that small florist shop who may need communications with their customers perhaps wants an analog phone with a wireless handset that they can walk around in their environment with. We can address that with Ooma Office. To larger customers that are in an office setting and they want to take advantage of IP telephones or voice over IP telephones, as Zeus mentioned, we have a whole portfolio of solutions that fit into that need. Or you may have folks that want to use their computer as a soft phone or want to leverage a mobile application to communicate through their business identity in the phone system to present the work number and not the individual's personal cell phone number. All of that is accounted for as part of the solution that we designed. And we made it very, very simple to deploy and very, very simple to use. And that's a critical difference here. We're not trying to overcomplicate the features and functionality that are available. We want to make it so that a lay person who doesn't understand phone systems can actually go into a web-based management interface and understand how to add and remove employees and change the way that they handle the phone calls that are coming into their business. And all of that happens instantaneously in the cloud, and it leverages your existing internet connection that you have in your business locations to power all of the connectivity for the phones. And we recognize that some folks also may not have wiring in their business. We have a variety of different solutions that allow you to set up these phones and work in the way that you want depending on what the infrastructure looks like, including not having to use expensive consultants to deploy this. We want it to be very, very simple for IT to deploy themselves or for customers that don't even have IT to deploy. And we underscore all of this with a support and onboarding team that is there to help you. 24/7 support. You can call us for just about anything, and we're going to help you through that journey, whether it's training you on how to leverage the system or performing configurations on your behalf and onboarding you so the conversion process from moving from an existing provider or an on-premises PBX is as seamless as it should be. The platform is architected to have a lot of capabilities, the right capabilities that matter to most businesses out there. So everything from how you handle phone calls that come in with a virtual receptionist to route it to the right individual, to mobile and desktop applications, to facilitating text messaging from an application, allowing you to place calls on hold or park them for other individuals to pick up in an organization, to giving you eFax capabilities that you don't have to pay for otherwise, handling 911 calls. Everything is there in the platform, inherently built in. And we provide the baseline Ooma Office platform for $19.95 a user a month with no contract. For organizations that have a little bit more robust needs, we introduced an Ooma Office Pro tier at $24.95 a user per month that allows you to take advantage of some specific functionality that may matter for more professional services-oriented businesses, things like call recording or the ability to block telemarketers calling into your business, or getting a transcription of your voicemail when it comes in so you don't actually have to listen to it if you're in a meeting, for instance. But the intent here is to provide a lot of latitude or flexibility in how you can implement this solution into your business and really extract a lot of value out of it. So you're not nickeled and dimed on a bunch of different features. You basically get everything that matters to you, and you know what the price is as you deploy this out within your organization. One of the awards that we're most proud of as a company is the PC Magazine Reader's Choice Award. So for the 7th year in a row now, Ooma has actually taken the #1 place for small business cloud VoIP systems. And this is really a testament to how much effort we've put into the ease of deployment, the ease of use, the value around the solution, and just as importantly, the support experience after you've deployed this solution as a customer. And it's one of the areas that we're most highly rated on. We really go out of our way to make sure that you understand the capabilities, that we help you through any questions that you may have with the operation or implementation of your system, and don't leave you hanging. We, at the end of the day, want to make sure that you really can take advantage of the investment that you're making for this type of service. If you think about the types of customer problems that we solve with Ooma Office, it's really geared for those businesses that want to professionalize the way that they appear to their customers. Maybe they're coming from POTS lines, analog lines. Maybe they're coming from a PBX that's 15 years old. But they really want to create tools that allow them to handle phone calls in a much more efficient manner and get them to employees, and most importantly, in light of the circumstances today, allow people to work from different locations. So whereas an on-premises PBX would solely be restricted in most cases to that environment, we can allow you to work from anywhere. So if your business happens to shut down for a period of time, you can still make and receive phone calls from the mobile app, for instance, or from a phone that you've deployed and plugged into your internet connection at your house. And we actually get a lot of customers that have experienced call quality issues with other services as well. So back to Zeus's point that he made earlier, we really go out of our way to create telemetry to monitor the performance of everything that we're doing to ensure that our customers have the best sort of call quality and facilitate them rolling out functionality to change the phone system in essence to the way that the business needs to operate or may need to operate differently at some point in the future. I'm also really excited to share a new solution that we just announced in April 2020. And this solution is geared towards business continuity and allowing environments to operate seamlessly independent of what may be happening with a traditional cable modem that they have in their organization. And again, like we've done with Ooma Office and our other solutions, we've really applied that heritage around our consumer residential background to make this type of solution very simple to deploy and very simple to manage for customers. And what Ooma Connect delivers is the ability to tap into the mobile network to provide internet connectivity to your business. There are a variety of other solutions on the market that solve for this same sort of need, but we built this with the small business customer in mind. And interestingly enough, we found very large organizations with IT that are pining for that same sort of simplicity. We designed this solution to be extraordinarily powerful. And so it's an LTE advanced antenna matched up with a router in essence that allows you to provide internet connectivity through the Sprint wireless network. And what's important about this is we've designed it so you can self-deploy it yourself. So it actually comes with a secondary unit that contains the LTE module and the antenna array in it, and there are actually 8 antennas that we built into this device. And you can deploy it far away from the base station. It actually runs over a form of Ethernet that provides power. And the key here is we wanted the radio and the antenna module to be powerful enough that you don't have to mount this solution outdoors. Rather, you could stick it in a window, for instance, or somewhere in the middle of the building, and it's designed to get the best possible LTE signal in that environment. And if you do need to deploy it outdoors, it's of course rated for that. But we wanted to make this plug and play straightforward. So it doesn't require any form of advanced configuration. The unit will come out pre-configured, pre-provisioned for your environment. You literally plug the unit in, put the antenna module in a window or somewhere within your business, and it will provide LTE connectivity for your business. And we did it again with value in mind. So we wanted to make this approachable for a lot of organizations that don't want to spend $2,000 on this type of solution, and they don't want to spend $100 a month on a plan from one of the wireless providers. So as we look at the different scenarios that Ooma Connect was designed for, one of the most interesting ones that popped up even before the times that we're facing now, frankly, is instant up or instant connectivity. So there are a lot of organizations now that may have to open up a secondary warehouse. Something may have happened in the primary warehouse, whether it's a natural disaster or it's a pandemic that prevents them from going in there. And Ooma Connect allows us to immediately stand up connectivity in an environment so that you can operate your business, all of the key business applications off of this device. Again, plug and play. You can actually keep a kit of these that are available to deploy at any point in time. And even in the small business world, you may be running a pop-up shop, for instance. And I've seen this with Kendra Scott, where they're going to do a pop-up shop at a location. They have point-of-sale terminals, and they need LTE connectivity to provide internet access so they can actually process payments. This is the type of solution that's built precisely for that environment that a layperson could stand up on their own and not have to call IT for assistance with how to get it deployed. The other opportunity for Ooma Connect that we designed around is business continuity. So now more than ever, that's become a critical component of how we design and architect from an IT perspective in organizations. So while the unit can provide primary internet access, like in a pop-up environment, it was also designed with a form of software-defined WAN in it. So it will act as a backup connection to an environment as well. If you have a cable modem that's deployed, you can plug that into the primary WAN port on this device, and we will auto-detect when there are issues on the primary internet connection and fail over to the LTE connection, and then return when the primary connection has corrected itself. SD-WAN is capable of a lot of amazing things, and Zeus was right. It's a fundamental rethinking of a legacy architecture, a legacy approach that we took to solving for networking. The key component of what we tried to solve for is we need to make this very, very simple. There can't be 100 different knobs that you pull on to enact this sort of failover or handle multiple internet connections. This was built with, again, a layperson in mind, so you literally take it into an environment, you plug in the LTE connection, you plug in your wireline connection, and we put all the intelligence in the box without your involvement to trigger those failovers so you're not constantly babysitting or watching the solution and what's happening. And the key here is now there's an affordable option, an insurance policy almost, for lots of businesses to have consistent connectivity, because more and more continues to rely on internet access as people have moved their systems into the cloud. And you even see this in the restaurant space with all of the point-of-sale vendors have shifted to an architecture that's cloud delivered. If the internet goes down in a business, you don't have connectivity, all these systems cease to function, and it becomes a quick game of how much revenue are you losing by not being able to operate as a business. The second component is we looked at this obviously from a voice perspective. How do we maximize the voice quality for customers with this type of setup in an environment and having control over the connections? We obviously implement quality of service to ensure that voice traffic is prioritized, but it allowed us an opportunity to extend this even further. And we have a solution that's patent pending called continuous voice. This too is a form of software-defined WAN that we've made very simple to deploy and very simple to utilize. And what it allows us to do is, in the scenario where a customer has a cable modem or a DSL connection or a fiber connection, and they're leveraging Ooma Connect with continuous voice, we will actually transmit all of the voice calls out both connections and then reassemble them on the other side in our cloud. And what this allows for is to mitigate scenarios where there's a degradation in performance. So if somewhere off in the wireline world, a router goes down or a link becomes saturated, we actually have two paths that we can go down, and we'll choose effectively the best quality packet on the other end. This allows us to maximize even more the probability that you're going to have a great phone call and great voice quality with it. And similarly, if there's a failover, the customer would never know. Users of the phones would never know. It's an instantaneous failover, no dropped quality that occurs. And again, the simplicity of this is what's so complicated. We wanted to design this so it's plug-and-play deployment. You're not pulling on a bunch of levers or pressing a bunch of buttons to take advantage of this. It operates in the background seamlessly with our monitoring to make sure that this is an easy, approachable experience for the vast majority of businesses. Ooma Enterprise is our platform that's focused on customers that are either larger in size, and so they may have more particular requirements around their unified communications as a service platform, or even smaller customers that have very unique or bespoke needs. We've built a platform that is highly flexible in nature. It's all API driven at its core that allows us to custom tailor solutions to the specific business process requirements of that organization. A good way to think about Ooma Enterprise versus Ooma Office is it's a superset, effectively, of the capabilities. Ooma Office is designed for that environment that's a little bit more pre-contained, if you will, in terms of their needs, a little bit more simplistic in terms of their needs. And Ooma Enterprise allows us to unlock additional capabilities, has all the functionality that Ooma Office has, but brings in other solutions like a call center. So if you have a support team or a customer service team that's fielding calls from your customers, we can allow you to address that environment effectively and easily. And we also have embedded video conferencing, which is something that will be coming soon to Ooma Office. Much to Zeus's point earlier, with this shift to working from home, it's only underscored the need for video conferencing as a platform that allows us to stay connected, feel connected to other folks. And it's an incredibly useful medium to conduct one-on-one conversations or multi-party conversations. And it's something that we include at no additional cost for you as part of the Ooma Enterprise platform so that every user of the system can really take advantage of it. One of the key components for us around Ooma Enterprise is unlocking integrations that are critical to different business customers. Whether it be a Salesforce.com integration, if you're using that with your sales team or your customer support team or Microsoft Dynamics, or some other tool that you're running in your environment that's SaaS-based, we have a lot of latitude in how we can integrate into business workflow processes for an organization, and a whole set of APIs for customers that want to connect to an application that IT has built internally in that organization, or even build a new application that rides on top of the platform that solves for a very specific business problem. The Ooma Enterprise platform is also globally distributed in nature. So much like Ooma Office is a highly reliable architecture, we've extended that to a footprint around the world. And the key is to allow your employees, wherever they may be, to operate most effectively and with the most reliable architecture that is available to ensure that they can conduct the work that they're trying to conduct. One of the critical components around how we handle all of our customers is customer service. With Ooma Enterprise, we take that even further. One of the nice components is the success hero that we actually assign to each customer of Ooma Enterprise. And this success hero is your dedicated champion, effectively. Someone that helps you through onboarding, but it doesn't stop there. Anytime you have a question on support or configuration, you have a dedicated resource that understands your business, how the implementation went, how you're leveraging the platform in your business, and they can be the quickest to help you understand resolution of issues or how to maximize the use of the system. And this is key for us to really have a tight-knit relationship with our enterprise customers that tend to have very bespoke needs or are globally distributed in nature. And it's something that we feel sets out the experience different from other vendors where you're calling into a support team that may be based within the country or outside of the country, and you never know who you're going to get. You know who you're going to talk to and who will be your primary point of contact to help you with any question that you may have. So if you look at the issues that Ooma Enterprise solves for, nuanced and different than Ooma Office, there are obviously overlap for organizations that are upgrading legacy PBXs or moving into a new location, but it tends to be very much driven by environments that have specific or unique needs, and we can custom craft the solution to fit into those needs, whether they're telephony related, whether they're call center related, whether it's connectivity related, or whether it's something unique that they want to create in their environment as an integration or an application over the top. This can fit for customers of any size. We have customers that actually have unique needs that are very small, all the way up to very large enterprise customers that obviously are looking at business process design quite differently. But feel comfort in that this platform is here to enable a variety of work methods that will provide a consistent, reliable experience in a global nature for you and really allow you to drive value from an IT perspective by creating unique solutions that hopefully contribute to successful business operation. Well, we hope that you found this webinar useful today. We wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and answer some questions that came in during the course of the event today. So I'll tee up the first question and let Zeus take the answer on that. So that question is, how easy or hard is it to migrate to a VoIP or cloud system without disrupting your team and your business?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the answer, frankly, is it's as easy or hard as your partner makes it. For a lot of companies, it can be quite difficult because they've probably never done that before. There's a lot of considerations, dialing plans and provisioning users and things like that. If you've got the right service partner and they have the right services in place to help you migrate through that, it can actually be quite simple. I know that's an area that Ooma spent considerable time with their customers making sure they have that done. I've always, for a lot of things in life, I always say if you measure twice and cut once, that cuts can be accurate, and I think never has that been more true than with cloud communication services. If you do the proper pre-work and you have the right partner in place, this migration can be fairly simple. If you don't, it can be very complicated and it can drag on for years. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's some great color on this situation, and to kind of underscore what was said there for Ooma and the approach that we take around assisting with migrations. A key component or strategy to this is we actually pre-provision all of the physical IP phones coming out, walk through all the call flow design, and we issue brand new phone numbers. And we do that so that we can verify everything is operating the way it should be in that environment and can handhold the porting process through to really maximize that day one is going to be a positive experience for everybody on the system. And then our other question is, how is Ooma different than other cloud communications providers? I'll chime in here, and Zeus, feel free to add any color if you want. So obviously you know that we've designed for the specific customer segments and needs. So having a solution that's not overcomplicated for what a customer is looking for is a critical component of what we do, but also that service angle, right? We're there as a true partner through the entire process to make sure that you have a really good implementation, really good onboarding, and a really good go live, and then underscore that with support that's available after the fact for any type of questions that you have. And then clearly on the enterprise side, providing a lot of flexibility around customization so that we can really craft a solution that's built to your business's requirements, especially if you have unique business processes that you need to account for, and then trying to make this all as simple as possible from a connectivity perspective with Ooma Connect so that you can have reliable internet access in your business and really ensure that voice quality. Anything else you'd like to add, Zeus?
Yeah, I'm certainly not here to, as an analyst, I'm not here to endorse one vendor or another, but I will say I like the approach of having different products for different markets. I think too often what I see from the vendor community is they have one product, and as the expression goes, if you're a carpenter and you only have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right? So that's often what I see is a company, they launch one product and they try and make it fit all markets. Frankly, what happens is it doesn't fit any market. So I think the fact that Ooma takes the time to actually create different products for different markets actually works well for your customer base.
Fantastic. Thank you for that color. With that, we're going to conclude the webinar for today. If you do have any further questions or want a free consultation, please contact the phone number on the screen there. Otherwise, we appreciate your attendance today and thank you for giving us consideration. Take care, everyone.